WCNC Charlotte, this is Flashpoint.
Thanks for joining us here on Flashpoint. I'm Ben Thompson. This upcoming Thursday, officials will take to the streets to help better understand the size and the scope of the homeless population here in Mecklenburg County. It's called the Point in Time Count, and it helps get an idea of how many people are living in a shelter or on the streets. It's a requirement to help give both the federal and local governments a better idea of how best to allocate resources. A bit later, we're going to break down the push here in Charlotte to get more folks off the street and into affordable housing. But first, joining us now, Mecklenburg County Commissioner Pat Cotham. Pat, welcome back to Flashpoint.
Well, thank you very much and Happy New Year.
And to you as well. Okay, coming up on January 26th, you're going to be one of the dozens of people out there trying to get a good idea of our homeless population in numbers. Set this up. Why is this count so critical?
Well, just to clarify, there will be around 160 people in Mecklenburg County. It is, first of all, it's mandated. We have to do it for, and in fact, it's being done all over the United States. And I have done it every year, and it's very helpful to gain this information so we can really identify and allocate resources from the county and nonprofits in the city as well.
I know you, and I've said this before on Flashpoint. I can't think of another elected official who's more involved in this issue than you. If folks follow you on social media, they'll see what you do on a regular basis, not just this one point in time. What do you personally gain out of being out there and working with these folks?
Well, it's a deeper dive than when I go uptown at night and I bring sandwiches and blankets and gloves and hats and hand warmers and things like that, and rain ponchos. But this, we go deeper into the camps especially, and that's the area that I usually like to go to, even though it's a little bit more difficult, because sometimes we have to walk down a hill or on a railroad track, but you really see a lot more. And if I'm going to serve the people, I really need to know more about their life. And this really gives a great snapshot of what really is happening. I often ask people, depending on who they are, what happened in your life that you are here, and it can be emotional. I remember a couple years ago walking down a railroad track and I saw a tent and then I saw a wheelchair outside the tent. And that was pretty overwhelming. Or when you find a baby's shoes, that there had been a baby, at a location like under 277. I've been under there several times. So it just kind of, I like to know the story behind the statistics, and not just with homelessness, but with everything. We can look at numbers, but we have to remember the humanity. We have to remember that this is someone's son, someone's daughter, someone's grandpa that's in this situation, and get to know them a little bit. So we when we go out, we have an app that we use to take information from the individual. And they do receive information ahead of time that this will be happening. So it's not usually a surprise. And then we are, able to ask them questions, and then we can better allocate resources.
How did the pandemic impact that? Because I know it was sort of a perfect storm of differing factors over the last few years. How did COVID impact those numbers?
I don't know specifically. And I would say it's still affecting people. COVID is still affecting people because there were also, more evictions. I have noticed in the last 6 weeks when I have been out at night and on Thanksgiving, I was at the women's shelter. I usually go there, and I saw more elderly women. And I hadn't seen that. I mean, you'll see one or two, but there were more. And when I found out it was more, they had been evicted and they didn't have any family to help them. So I'm curious if we're going to see more elderly people, but I can't say that I know, but it certainly affected it. I mean, in recent years, we often had like 2,500, but I know our population has grown, but the idea that it's, over 3,000. So it certainly took a toll.
For a lot of folks, the most visible sign they saw were the camps that grew up alongside 277 and other interstates. A lot of those people were put in housing of some sort. Where does it stand with those camps? Because I don't want to give people the false impression, because those camps aren't as readily visible, that the problem is no longer there.
No, they are still there, and I would say there are more camps. And this is the first time when we do this count that we're going to include the 6 towns. So, and there are camps in the 6 towns as well. And sometimes they're smaller camps, sometimes they're bigger, but it just, you see all kinds of things. But the one under 277 has been there as long as I've been a county commissioner, since 2012. And sometimes under 277, I remember there were some young people there, and they had moved here from Ohio, and they had a job, and then they lost their job, and then they lost their place, and then there were some older people there, and the younger people, it was like a family, and they were helping to take care of the older people. So it is really fascinating to see how this works, and but this is a problem nationwide, and it certainly has been a problem here, and I've tried to be involved to better understand it.
And as a person who has been involved for years now, and has seen the problem through tough economic times, the pandemic, as we mentioned, what do you see as in an admittedly complicated issue, what do you see as a long-term solution to this?
Well, I don't believe there's one solution. I think these issues that are so complicated, we have to kind of circle it and hit it from many different angles. I mean, certainly not enough housing for people who are under the 30% average median income. So that includes, hourly workers. It includes senior citizens on a disability or on Social Security. So it's lower income people. And we continue to have like 34,000 people in that group. That is the biggest group. Yet when we see affordable housing, people talk about affordable housing, often it doesn't include that group, or it's a small percentage of it. And then it's more people who are making 60% or up to 80%. So then you're talking about people with jobs, that are maybe they're school teachers or new workers, younger people that are early in their career, and the 80% is can go up to over, I think it's over $60,000 with a family of 4. So there's a lot of things we have to do. Certainly emphasis on jobs, certainly emphasis on, and it's not just, Ben, it's not just, we have all these jobs available, but a lot of times people, they have skills, but they don't have the skills to understand how to get that job. And that, I learned that before I became a county commissioner, when I worked for a nonprofit. And, you could have a guy that knows how to drive a forklift, and then you could have a job for a forklift driver, but he may not have any idea how to get that job. And those are the soft skills that he did not learn on interviewing, and that's an area that I spent a lot of time in when I was at the nonprofit. But I was kind of baffled about it. But that problem still exists today.
For the folks at home watching, and maybe they live a wonderful life in a nice home, nice cars, but what do you tell people to do when they see a unhoused person, somebody who might be on the streets, and they want to help, but they don't know what to do? What do you tell those people?
I usually encourage people to try to see if there's a group at their house of worship, because often there is, or if they got a group together, or to help the nonprofits like, Block Love and other groups that we have that work with the homeless community, the NAACP. They do work, to support them. And maybe if they're interested, to go along and just observe. But I never encourage people to go out by themselves, or even with a couple of people if they've never done it before, because we have to think about safety, and so that's what I usually tell them. But it is a concern.
Pat, thanks for coming on Flashpoint. We appreciate it as always.
All right, thank you so much. Have a great day.
Take care. More Flashpoint after this.